Your opening statement and find
Wars have been fought throughout human history. We think of war and our thoughts and feelings drift towards images of death and fear. It is important, however, to consider the ultimate benefits wars have brought to human societies. Numerous conquerors, victorious in war, have developed bigger, more advanced societies, with governments powerful enough to impose law and order. As empires and nations grew through war, civilizations expanded, became more advanced and prospered. In more modern times, bigger wars have been followed by longer periods of peace and progress. War. There is no doubt that war is horrible, but also brings progress. Deaths from war are always bad, but when you think about what your nation has done, like freeing another nation from oppression or giving them freedom, I am arguing that war is progress affirmative. My first main point is where war can bring new advancements to other lands that have been conquered. Genghis Khan's armies conquered more territory than any in history. Khan's armies spread many advances, such as a writing system, legal codes, and religious tolerance across larger and larger populations. Khan created a strong communication system throughout his empire that ultimately stimulated trade between Asia and Europe. World War I is referenced as the Chemists' War, both for use of poison gas and the important advances in high explosives. Over the course of the war, British and German scientists raced to develop more advanced chemicals and weapons to defeat their enemy. The knowledge and technology from this war effort led to important advancements in chemical engineering and medicine, like mobile X-ray machines. My next main point is that war brings new jobs to the economy. When countries were in financial debt, war could be used like selling weapons and supplies to those at war. An example of a money-making circle starts with the miners. They sell the ore to be refined. Then the ore refineries go to the weapons factories. Finally, the factories sell their weapons to the military or other countries. Another way to gather money is from raids or conquering other nations. An example of this would be a German trench in World War I, fighting lots of commodities to sell. I predict that my opponent will talk about the unhappiness and suffering of the people, but war may bring peace for generations to come. Sometimes war is necessary for peace, and war is a necessary evil, for afterwards peace will rise. In the end, war is a necessary evil because of the technological and economic advancements. Therefore, war is progress. I'm now ready for my cross-examination.
So Gavin, you are going to have 2 minutes to copy Gavin's up, and that time is in.
Do you think it is okay for people to die in war?
Yes.
Well, do you think it's okay for millions upon millions of people to die in any war?
Yes.
Do you think it's okay for them to die if they lose the war?
Yes, because that still means that they fought for their country and that they fought for something they believed in.
Did you know that about 30% of people have PTSD from wars?
No, I did not.
Well, they do. And and did you know that 30% of people got it from Vietnam?
No, I did not.
Well, do you agree that from the atrocities of war, people have gotten PTSD?
It was worthwhile? Like, can you please restate that question?
Do you agree that people have gotten PTSD from seeing the atrocities of war?
Yes, I do.
So you are agreeing that war is bad?
No, I am not. My reason behind that is because although a few may have a trauma like PTSD, some people may the need of the many outweighs the need of the few, and that 30% is the need of the few.
Well,
gonna have 3 minutes for your opening statement, and that time begins.
My resolution is that war makes progress. However, I do not support it. As the former U.S. Senator George McGovern said, "The truth is that I oppose the Iraq War, just as I opposed the Vietnam War, because these two conflicts have weakened the U.S. and diminished our standing in the world and in our national security. Today, conflicts can happen anywhere. In fact, there are several going on right now: war on drugs, the Afghanistan War, Syrian Civil War, the Iraq Civil War, and several throughout history. I have studied the ancient conquerings of Mayans, Egyptians, Japanese samurais, the Incans, and one of the largest wars, World War I. Which brings me to my first point. In war, there are so many deaths. Deaths can set a civilization back and will halt their progress, and I don't think that they should be happening. In World War I alone, there were 17 million, yes, that's 17 million deaths. About 6.7 million were civilian deaths from disease, freezing, malnutrition, and much more. Germany was set back in World War I because they lost 2 million soldiers in the Great War. Then there were the civilians in which they had lost about 800,000. They were freezing to death on the streets and surviving on cans of soup and tea. Almost every single person was malnutritioned and sick except for the rich. This is just one of many examples of how war can cost us. Which brings me to my second point. There were lots of dangerous technologies that were created because of mainly of the poison gas, grenades, bombs, and machine guns. These weapons could kill anyone on the battlefield, including your friends and your enemies. The grenade was created in 1914 and was consisting of rusty nails and old cans filled with gunpowder. The grenade has evolved, but it can still explode you and ruin people's lives. The machine gun also could have been discharged while cleaning it, picking it up, or even just touching it. The poison gases used in World War I were easily picked up by the winds and could have been carried by them to your own troops, which caused irritation even under the clothes, blindness, pure agony, and even some cases death. I now stand by for cross-examination.
Brett, you have 2 minutes to cross-examine again, and that time's right.
Do you agree that people deserve to be free?
Yes.
Now, do you agree that people who live in their homeland should be able to stay in their homeland?
Yes.
If people are being oppressed, then do you think they should be able to fight for their freedom?
No, because that'll just lead to more violence and you can just negotiate it out.
Then what are oppressed people supposed to do if that doesn't work?
They can just get mass groups and try to rebel against the leader, or they can just try to leave the country in large groups, and the guards or whoever's guarding the border can't stop them because there's too many.
And so if that does happen, would you agree that it is progress, or is it advancing the culture of that society?
Can you restate that?
Like, so they leave, that could be a big historical fact about that country. So do you agree that that would add their culture into more depth?
Yes, but it was achieved without war.
Okay. Moving on. Do you agree that wristwatches are useful in everyday life?
No,
How so?
because sometimes, well, you only need to tell the time sometimes.
Okay. Then do you agree that mobile X-ray machines are useful?
In some cases, yes, if there's a bad accident.
What are the cases that it is not useful in?
If someone gets a minor cut riding on a scooter.
So could you believe that war is the cause of
Time.
this?
You each have 1 minute for prepared your closing statement, you may use the table behind you. Time's up. If you'll please return to your podiums, and Brett will begin with your closing statement. You'll have 1 minute, and then Gavin will have 1 minute for yours as well. And Brett, your time starts now.
Now, we've been debating about whether or not war is progress, so I'll end with this. Think of all the technology, freedom, housing, and appliances we have. Some of that was developed during wartime for the military or civilian purposes, and have given us great opportunity to do great things from a technological standpoint, like going from hunters and gatherers to creating empires and governments to waging wars across the world. Now, to finalize my thought, as Gavin said, the PTSD, or the post-traumatic stress, that is the few. They are the few, and although that may be horrific, it does outweigh the need of the many. And poison gas was developed during World War I, as Gavin said also previously, and how it was still
Gavin, you have 1 minute for your closing statement. Okay, go wait. That's 1 minute for your closing statement. That time begins.
My resolution is that war does not make progress. People are halted in their progress and can't move on until the war ends because of debts, food shortages, and etc. One example is that people die in war. They get murdered for conflicts that could have been solved by friendly debates or government treaties. Another example is that there are too many dangerous technologies created in war over time, such as grenades, guns, tanks, nuclear bombs, missiles, and many more. My opponent argued that war makes progress because people can advance in their country by waging a war against their oppressors if they're oppressed. I disagree with that because they could do it in a way more peaceful way with either treaties or just rebelling and trying to move forward in such large groups that the oppressor can't oppress them anymore. As Alfred Adler said, war is organized murder and torture against regulators. I agree with that, and clearly war does not make progress. Thank you.